The transfer portal is wild right now with loads of new names entering on Monday. Today I give you the names Bill O'Brien must keep in Chestnut Hill.
You are Locked On Boston College, your daily podcast on the Boston College Eagles. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. This is Locked On Boston College, your team every day. I'm your host, AJ Black of Eagle Insider, part of the 247 Network. I've been covering Boston College for over a decade, and if you're looking for news, analysis, and details on your Boston College Eagles, you are in the right place. Locked On Boston College is a free daily Boston College podcast available on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. On today's show, we're going to keep talking about that QB that keeps coming up in reports. Hasn't entered the portal yet, but I'll tell you more about him. We're going to look at the portal. Some more names keep adding in. Some add up. Some do not really. I'll tell you where we are right now with Boston College roster. And let's kick it off by talking about who hasn't entered the portal and who Bill O'Brien must retain. But before we do that, today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Okay. BC has now 10 players in the transfer portal. 2 new players entered on Monday. Jack Funk of Zavarian Brothers, a fourth-year offensive lineman who has 1 more year remaining, played 52 snaps on special teams, but really wasn't much of a contributor, and honestly, on offense, and really didn't have much of a role probably in front of him for next year. He entered the portal on Monday. And then in the afternoon, Ty Clemens, a defensive tackle who played quite a bit last year and then got hurt this year and played in 4 games and is going to get an extra year out of this. Actually, I think he has 5 games. He has another year that he had an injury. He entered the portal. Now, Ty Clemens has one of my favorite plays under the Bill O'Brien era. That was that big guy tutty that he had last year against Pitt when Nato Ekpala swatted that pass and he picked it up and picked it off for a touchdown. That was one of my favorite plays, but he's gone too. So, now that these players are in the portal, who should BC retain? Who are the must retains for BC? Because, when you look back over the last couple of years, in the years of NIL, the years of transfer portal, there have been players that have been bigger names that BC has tried to keep, whether it's Donovan Nazaraku, Zay Flowers, Ozzie Trapillo. These guys all had suitors from bigger programs, but BC took care of them to make sure they stayed here. So the question now remains, who on this roster are those players that you want to make sure don't leave? Because maybe their talent is going to push your team forward next year. The first big name for me, and one of the biggest names that you have, is on the offensive side of the ball, and that is Reed Harris. Now, is Reed Harris the next great wide receiver? It's a little early to say that. He has his moments, but then he has games like Syracuse where he played against a good defensive back. He struggled. That being said, I don't care about that. The potential is there. Remember, this is a kid that came to BC just a couple years ago as an athlete, but played high school quarterback. Last year, they put him in as a tight end for parts of last year. It only was to about the middle of the season that he actually turned into one of those wide receivers that you really want to trust and hope can really carry you. He's only had half of this. He's 6'5". These types of wide receivers don't grow on trees. You have other guys on your roster like Cedric Lott. He's 6'5" as well. But not a knock on Lott, who's just learning the sport. He's on year 2, I think, of learning this, 2 or 3 of just playing football, period. But Reed Harris and Lott, there's quite a bit of difference. You got to be able to keep him because you're not going to be able to find somebody. And honestly, the way the wide receiver transfer portal has worked the last couple of years, once under Hafley and once under O'Brien, it hasn't panned out well for you in the transfer portal at wide receiver. You have VJ Wilkins play 50 snaps this last year, and Jerron Bradley and Jaden McGowan are not productive at all. So I think Reed Harris is a must. The second must is Turbo Richard. Now, Turbo, it's hard because right now you could say you could find running backs that can do what he does. Like, he hasn't shown like that he's like this elite running back, and this is not a knock on Turbo. He's had some good games, and we've seen him. I mean, he had 4 touchdowns the last 2 games, which is great. But would you put him in the AJ Dillon, Andre Williams category? No. Would you put him even at the level of, some of the greater running backs that they've had in the last couple of years? Probably not yet. He's gonna be better though. Just like with Reed Harris, this is a guy. He's on his second year. This is his first year really as a starter. He's also doing this with a offensive line that wasn't very good for most of the year. When he had the blocks in front of him, he did a good job. When you look at your rest of your running back room right now, it's a little bit worrisome because Bo McCormick cannot do what Turbo Richards can do yet. He may be able to do that in a year or two. I just don't see it yet. Mekhi Dodd, I don't know what he can do. He has only played like 5 or 6 snaps and didn't see a ton of him during practice either. And that's about it. Alex Brum is back. He definitely can't do it because he's a different style of back. So it's Turbo, and you're probably going to need to get a transfer in here. But you can't let Turbo go. That's a big one for BC. So that's another piece of a player that cannot enter the portal. The next one, Kalyn Kaczynski. Now, this is one I'm putting in here. He's not going anywhere. His dad's on the staff. He's local. I just really enjoyed what he did as a freshman. And you can do a lot with Kalyn Kaczynski, and a good offensive coordinator or former offensive coordinator like Bill O'Brien should be able to find a million different things he can do with him to make defenses struggle because he's big, he's fast, he's got good hands. So I'm not going to get into this one a lot because there's no way. I just do not see him going anywhere. But Kalyn Kaczynski can't. He's one he's going to be there. Then let's go to the defensive side of the ball. Yes, you went 2-10 last year, and yes, your defense was pretty bad. But there's 2 players on defense I think are actually I'm going to give him 3. Let's go with the safety boys. Let's go KP Price and Omar Thornton. When your defense is playing better and there's talent around them, Omar Thornton and KP Price are going to be very, very good. When they have to do everything for defenses, which was a big problem for them last year because you had KP Price playing linebacker, you had Omar Thornton having to do a whole lot, it stretches them thin. And it's tough for both of them. I get that. But with this other player I'll talk about in a second, when you get them in there, then these 2 slot into their roles a little bit more comfortably, and you have a much better defense. So KP Price, neither of these. KP Price had a good season. He led the team in tackles. I think we're expecting more out of him. And with a better defense, with better pressure, with better players around him, he will be better. And Thornton, the same thing. Like Thornton, if there's good players around him, is going to be a menace next year with the way he can hit. But I think those are 2. And my final one, he's on the graphic that you looked at. Didn't play all that much this year, but when I watched him against Syracuse, I saw exactly what BC was missing. Omari Jackson. Omari Jackson has to come back. He is your lockdown cornerback. I'd love to see Saya Torrance back too, but if I'm just naming the guys that can't leave, and I don't think Saya Torrance is going anywhere, Omari Jackson is the big one. Now, he just graduated, so he could stay and do his graduate work, and I would be stunned if BC, because he's a graduate student, moved him on. Because the way he plays at the line of scrimmage and the way he can read offenses, they don't have many other cornerbacks that can do that yet. You need him. You cannot let him go. So for me, Omari Jackson. Those are my guys. Notice I didn't put anyone on the offense or defensive line, which is not a good thing. I didn't pick any linebackers. Not a good thing. The piece with that is those guys are the ones that you're going to need to rely on are so unproven. I just couldn't put them on a list like this. Like, maybe they will develop. I just don't know that yet. These are the guys that you can't lose, though. So that's it. BC's at 10 transfers right now. These are the ones I think that they can't lose if that happens. All right, in a minute, let's talk about who has entered the portal. I'll over play-by-play and give you my thoughts on Is this a big loss? Is it not a big loss? We'll talk about each player and give our thought. I'll give you my thoughts on that in just a moment. The holidays are here, and whether you're hosting family, planning the perfect gift, or just trying to keep things simple and delicious, Omaha Steaks is making it easier than ever. From effortless holiday entertaining to unforgettable gifts, Omaha Steaks delivers the world's best steak experience delivered straight to your door. And what makes it even better? With Omaha Steaks, you know you're getting exactly what you're gifting. USDA certified tender steaks, premium proteins, gourmet sides, and decadent desserts that make everyone feel appreciated. My wife's grandmother got me a Omaha steak box a couple of years ago, and this thing was amazing. We had sides, we had steaks that were out of this world with great flavor and desserts. I'm getting hungry thinking about it. It's such a gift. It was one of those special gifts. You know, a couple of years later, I'm still talking about it, and I love those. It was so unique. It was so good, and I would definitely love another one of those boxes. So save big on a gourmet gift and holiday favorites with Omaha Steaks. Visit omahasteaks.com and for an extra $35 off, you use code COLLEGE at checkout. Terms apply. See site for details. That's omahasteaks.com. Promo code COLLEGE. Thank you for making Locked On Boston College your first listen of the day, and thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. And if you're a true Boston College fan, the Everyday All Access tier is built for you. You'll get one-on-one text access with me, all access episodes, an exclusive newsletter, and a 15% discount to the Locked On merch store. Head to lockedonbostoncollege.supercast.com. Again, that's lockedonbostoncollege.supercast.com. And you can check that out. Now, if you want to just join the Everydayers Club, you can do that and already live with your team. Now you can get it to the next level and go ad-free. Join the Everydayer Club and get Locked On Boston College with no interruptions, members-only Discord access, and more. All just for $5 a month or $50 a year. Again, go to lockedonbostoncollege.supercast.com and you can sign up for just the base tier. You can go to there, check that out. The details on both of these tiers are in the show notes. I hope you guys take advantage of that during the holiday season. This is Locked On Boston College. I'm your host, AJ Black, and to all my everydayers out there and those who have joined the Everydayers Club, I want to thank each and every one of you. I appreciate you. Make sure you're on that subtext now. I've been texting like crazy recently. I got the app on my phone now, so I hope I hear from you. And join up so you can text directly to me and give me your thoughts on BC. Now, the portal is adding up. 10 players are in the portal. It's a bit, but it's not. I don't think this is a huge amount of transfers so far. My number that I came up in my head going into this offseason, just my ballpark, was around 17. That's around what I thought BC would be at. And we still have 2 weeks left. So it could be, it could be anywhere from like 17 to 20. That's not an unrealistic number of players. And 17, I believe, was around what BC had last year. So I think that's around where things are going to be at. And you have not seen a mass exodus. You have not seen lots of players that you really want leave. But we'll go over, on a scale of 1 to 10, what these players, what the loss. So their impact is going to be on the team for next year. So 1 being it's not a big impact at all. 10 being it's a major impact. Let's go over each one. Ty Clemens played a bit last year, played a lot the year before, was a very big situational defensive tackle. I had him on my 2 deep for next year. He's one of my big surprises, honestly, of this offseason that he entered the portal. Was he the best defensive tackle you had? No. But was he someone that you probably could use next year? Sure. So I'm going to put him at a 7 in terms of impact. He's one of my bigger impacts. I thought, you already lost. You're going to lose at least one other one, and we'll talk about in just a second. But you also have said McConnell graduating. You have Quan Williams graduating. The defensive tackle position now is getting shallower and shallower. And losing Clemens just adds to that. So I put him pretty high up there. Jack Funk. Okay. The Funk family is awesome. You got your dad and mom who are graduates. You got Dominic Funk coming in. Jack Funk was a special teamer. So I'm going to put him as a 3 because I don't think he was going to play next year on offense. Obviously, he played 52 snaps on special teams. So that it may not for you be a big deal, but hey, football's a 3 area game, right? You got your offense, your defense, special teams. He played on special teams. That piece makes it so he's not like a guy that was not playing at all, like the one I'm going to talk about in just a second, next to it in a second. But he wasn't like future tackle. That wasn't just what was going to happen. So I'll put him as a 3. Next, Datrell Jones, Day Jones, went from running back to wide receiver last year. I played about eight, he had like 8 or 10 rushes the year before. They moved him out of running back, moved him to wide receiver. He didn't play at all last year. I'm going to put him as a 1 in terms of impact on BC because I did not expect him to play at all. Even if he was here, I didn't expect him to play. I just didn't see a role for him on this roster. He's gone. I'm going to also put Nate Johnson as a 1 because he was already gone anyways. I think he wasn't even on the roster this fall, but he's now in the portal for this winter. Didn't expect him to do much. Okay. So Johnson, I just did not see them playing a big role. So I'm going to put them there. Jaden LaFontaine, I'm going to put him as a 3-4. He was a part-timer for BC, like he was a 2 on the 2. Could have played with injuries. There's other guys, obviously he was playing a lot of guard. I saw a lot of guys playing ahead of him. So not the biggest loss. So as you can see, we've got one big one so far with Ty Clemens and then like 4 so far that are not. Dylan Larnigan, I'm going to put this as a 9. This probably is the biggest one there's one more coming up that's big. This is the biggest surprise to me this offseason. And everyone keeps looking at me that they're not that. Why are you surprised? Well, because he was your starting quarterback. He got hurt. He got back and played okay against Georgia Tech, got hurt again. I figured he would just come back and, build upon that. But now he's going to the portal, so good luck. And now BC doesn't have a starting quarterback. So it doesn't get much bigger than that. So the fact that you need to go into the portal now and get yourself a quarterback that can play because you have nobody makes Dylan Larnigan a 9. Sterling Sanders, I'm going to put him he's a defensive tackle. I'm going to put him at a 5. Now, Sterling Sanders played 3 snaps this year. But as I talked about with Ty Clemens, your defensive tackle position is decimated right now from graduations and the portal. Sanders, I thought, would be a guy that could step in and play. He's a 4-star out of high school. He looked good in all those postseason camps that he was in. I thought he would jump in and play. He did not. So I'm going to put him at a 5. Now, Jason Hewlett. This is a tougher one for me, what I would put him as because, this was all timing based off of the other guy that left earlier. I was surprised at how little he played this year, given the issues they had at linebacker. And so even with all those issues that BC had at linebacker, he only played like 70 snaps on defense all year. So because he didn't do much and I didn't expect him, I'm going to put him as a 5. Like I thought, like when they brought him in from Michigan, there's a guy that was ready to take that next step. He just never did. All right. Next, I'm putting at a 10 is Davion Crouch. BC has nothing right now in terms of experience at linebacker. You have a lot of potential with guys like Griffin Collins and Zachary Thomas, but you have a major problem at linebacker because you do not have Owen McGowan, who graduated, Bryce Steele, who graduated, Jalen Blackwell, we don't know if he'll play again, and Jason Hewlett entering the portal. Losing Davion Crouch, who got hurt last year, played 4 games, could have redshirted, was about as big of a loss as you could have expected. This was the oh no moment. Him and Larnigan, because you do not have anything behind him that you can go in and go, there's our guy for next year. This was as big of a loss as it gets. And this goes in like, in my opinion, this is just my opinion and staff may disagree, that one of those like big portal losses. You didn't have any last year that you're like, oh, Ryan Turner, that was a tough one. No, that didn't really count. You haven't had one in a couple years. Davion Crouch is an ouch. And then Ashton McShane, I'm going to put as a 4. Ashton McShane is, a cornerback that didn't play at all this year, really. He was hurt. He wasn't hurt. I don't know what was going on with him. He seemed like he was dressed when I was at the games, but never played. He played a ton last year. I don't know what happened where he fell off with the staff. So I'm going to put him as a 4 because he could have played but didn't. So now you can see, like, most of the guys that you landed were in that, like, 3 to 5 range for me. You had a couple that were pretty high, and then a couple that were really low. So it hasn't been a mass exodus of talent. Now, as I said, like, if Turbo enters or Reed Harris enters, these are bigger issues. But right now, I would put the whole group itself in terms of impact at like a 4. That's kind of where I envision that rounding out to be, about a 4. So it's less than average in terms of like talent loss. You've lost a few, but not a ton. And that's where I think things are landing. Now, in a moment, there's a quarterback name that keeps coming up in the portal, and it came up in another report. And I'll explain who that is and what that means for BC in just a moment. The World Cup is coming back to North America for the first time since 1994, and with 48 teams for the first time ever, it's going to be massive. Let's be honest, getting tickets is usually the hardest part. That's why Game Time app is clutch, finally giving fans a real edge when it comes to staying seats. With Game Time, you can track price drops in real time, get alerts when your great seats open, and buy tickets the moment they hit the app. It puts the power back in your hands and makes going to the World Cup realistic instead of impossible. You pull up the app. The layout makes it so simple to scroll through the matchups and compare seats. I love the seat finder. I used it for football. I've used it for wrestling. Easy to find, easy to use. And many times with the fees already included, you know exactly what you're paying. There are no surprises. So take the guesswork out of buying World Cup tickets in every match, concert, or event with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, download the app, make an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Game Time. Locked On Boston College, AJ Black of Eagle Insider. Thank you all for making us your first listen every single day. And I appreciate all of you who have made us part of your daily routine, whether you're listening to us on your way to work, cooking breakfast, or walking the dog. I love that you have chosen Locked On BC as part of your daily routine. Now, one name that's come up in the portal. Now, names are entering the portal all the time, and technically, throughout the world of college football, technically can't talk to these recruits until January 2nd. But if you believe that this is what's happening in the world of college football, I've got a bridge to sell you. Okay? I'm not saying what BC's doing. I have no idea. But what I did read today was A to Z Sports, and they had an article that talked to somebody about all of the portal quarterbacks, because on Monday there was a ton that entered between DJ Lagway and Dylan Raiola, and there's a bunch. The kid from Cincinnati. There was a lot of talk about this, so they were talking about where players could end up, and one name was not in the portal yet, but has been buzzing for Boston College, and it's one we've mentioned here before. And that's Deuce Knight. And he said, that A to Z said, they talked to somebody who said, watch BC with Deuce Knight because of his relationship with Kenyatta Watson. This begs a big question. Is this the right fit for Boston College? On one hand, you have a quarterback who would be the biggest quarterback, I believe, would be right up there with Brian Toll in terms of the highest rated recruit that you've ever brought in. Now, if you use 247 composite rankings, Deuce Knight is in the top, not only in the top 100, but he is, and I'm pulling it up right now, number 56. That is incredibly high. He's a 4-star on just regular, 5-star on composite, where he's number 28 and the number 5 quarterback from last year. That would bring a lot of buzz. That would bring a lot of excitement, which BC desperately needs. And he has a ton of athletic traits that would be a lot of fun to watch. The concern is would he fit into what Bill O'Brien is doing, A, and B, how much money is this going to cost you so that you can't fill, as I said before, things like linebackers where you don't have any, or edges where you don't have anyone really productive yet. You have a lot of holes that you need to fill. So that's the part here. Hopefully, if this is something BC is considering, like A to Z is proposing, they have a plan in place. Because if they're just blowing their all their money on a quarterback, that's going to be a recipe for disaster. Especially Knight hasn't really played all that much. But if they surround him, if they have the money to do it, and they can surround him with a better offensive line, a defense that can make some stops, let's try it. Let's see what happens. Are there other quarterbacks that may fit into his system better? Sure. But are there any with as high as an upside as Knight? That's hard to argue. Knight might have one of the highest upsides in many of the quarterbacks that are out there. So there's a lot that BC will have to weigh if this is the type of position they're going to go in. Now, he has not even entered the portal yet, but his name keeps popping up everywhere you're reading. It's like BC. They might be looking at Deuce Knight. This is the newest one on A to Z. So this will be something that BC fans are going to have to watch because there's a lot that's going into. So again, the portal doesn't open until January 2nd. January 2nd is when they officially enter. That week is going to be crazy because you got, I forget, I think it was like the 10th or the 11th is when BC opens for the spring semester. So you have the portal open on the 2nd, and BC's going to have to basically make an entire transfer portal class in like 8 days or something like that. It's like 8 to 10 days. That's nuts. So that's going to be wild. This takes apart the wildness that recruiting once had, which is that everything is just happening all over the place, but makes it more so that it's wild because it's now concentrated to this really small window. So that's my thoughts there. Thank you all for listening. My name is AJ Black. We'll be back again tomorrow where probably be more news coming up. And again, if you've not joined our everyday or all access club, I hope you join it. I'm going to do a special 8 to 10 minute episode right after this. It's only available for that premium tier. I hope you join us because I drop them often and I use the Discord. I use subtext. So join me up over there and I'll see you all again soon for another episode of Locked On Boston College, your team every day.